Welcome, everyone, to a special edition of Space Talks with Z, hosted by the America's Future Series. We're recording this discussion with Peter Beck, CEO of Rocket Lab, rocket enthusiast turned CEO of an international rocket launch company. And this is a special recording for the second day of the Space Innovation Summit. Thanks very much to Viasat and Millennium Space Systems for helping make these discussions possible. And so without further ado, I would like to welcome and thank Mr. Peter Beck, CEO of Rocket Lab, international CEO, who's come up from working on machines all the way through being the CEO of Rocket Startup. So welcome, sir, so much. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks very much. So,
you know, I figured we'll just jump right in. I know we've only got about 30 minutes, and everybody wants to hear about Capstone. It is just a spectacular success. Congratulations. And it's, you know, in another level because of, again, commercial space company as opposed to a government entity. And, you know, this unlocks things perhaps in terms of access to lunar orbit and the surface itself, like behind me, from a commercial provider. Where do you go from here, and what do you envision the use cases of this amazing capability?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the thing that excites me the most. Look, the mission was incredibly hard, and it took us, you know, a lot of resource to pull it off. But at the end of it, what we've actually created is a very, very, affordable and incredibly, powerful, but also very, very accurate deep space, probe and bus. So, we've blown past the moon already. I haven't caught up with the team how far we are, but 400,000 plus kilometers out. We can easily get to them. We've demonstrated we can easily get to the moon with this. We can go and visit other planets. We can go to asteroids, and for some tens of millions of dollars. And it's the capability that's been created here is just really, really probably the most exciting thing for me is that when we look at our own missions to like Venus, the spacecraft that we flew here last week is exactly the same spacecraft that we will fly to Venus. There's almost no changes. So, really created a new capability for doing not just, lunar, but interplanetary science at a frequency and cost that has just not been available before.
Yeah, no, this is spectacular. And, if you could, maybe, is there one particular story throughout this journey to that you like, maybe that hasn't been shared before that you could share with us? Any project like this has these crazy moments where everything's pivotal, kind of like in the movies, and yet you only realize that they're happening, a year later.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's be so many of those. I mean, it's one of those programs that, on a piece of paper, it looks super simple. We'll just upgrade a Curie engine, we'll make a Hyper Curie engine, put some tanks on it, a couple of bits and pieces and a good radio, and we're good to go. And just everything is super hard. I mean, the mass fraction of the spacecraft is phenomenal. I mean, the carbon composite tanks, you can see the actually picture behind me. Those carbon composite tanks are just super thin wall, like 0.8 of a millimeter thick in carbon composite. And of course, they have to be gas tight and, have to be, compatible with propellants and all of those things. And then the Hyper Curie engine itself, 300 seconds of ISP won't cut it. It's a 305, 310. We saw some firings that were approaching 320 seconds of ISP on that engine. And anybody who knows who's built little non-cryogenic engines knows that 300 seconds of ISP, you can go to Airbus's catalog and pick the very best top engine, and it's
not happening.
It's just 310 is it.
Yeah.
So to develop an entirely new propulsion system from scratch, and then just like the radio, having a radio that can do deep space, can do ranging for navigation, really, really, complicated tasks. And then the burns themselves, most new satellites, you get deployed in orbit and you've got, hours or days or weeks to commission it.
Right.
And you know, we saw with the Capstone spacecraft itself, it took a couple of days just to get everything commissioned and happy before the mission could continue. Well, we don't have that luxury. We have a full 3-axis stabilized, you know, deep space spacecraft that gets separated off the rocket, and a few minutes later has to liven up, light, point, go, and execute, you know, those trajectory maneuvers flawlessly. And it's not just one maneuver. You know, as we raise the, you know, the apogee on every you know, maneuver to reach the TLI, absolutely pinpoint, you know, precision timing, right back from an instantaneous launch window through to every one of those burns has to be absolutely perfectly timed, perfect amount of total impulse delivered, and you know, really fly that spacecraft. And then, you know, during the mission, we actually combined 2 of those maneuvers together. We called it the super maneuver, and we combined burns 6 and 7 together and put over 1 kilometer a second of delta V on it in you know, in one burn. And that was because, you know, the propulsion system was performing so well, and you know, we could you know, de-risk the mission a little bit by just, you know, doing one burn instead of another burn. And then, of course, the TLI burn, you know, it'll be something that I remember for the rest of my life. Is, you know, we unfortunately we do all these burns in the dark.
Yeah.
So, you know, we lose comms, do the burn, and point the dish where it should be, and it's either there or it's not there. And you know, hence the reason you saw a tremendous amount of eruption if you watch any of the live streams, because you know, the burn's all done in the dark.
Yeah, and then you're waiting.
You're just waiting. You're just waiting for the, you know, for the return signal. So yes, it's just been an incredibly exciting mission that is just, you know, 2.5 years of just absolute huge amount of work by the team.
And what's amazing about this, just to highlight this for some of our listeners, is the innovation is not just in, you know, rocket go up. It's the astronautics here are tremendous.
Yeah.
And the innovation in the maneuvering, right? This is all a contribution from Rocket Lab that goes out into the general world, just as that is. And the institutional knowledge and capability and capacity that's being built in the employee workforce is really tremendous. This is what we think about. I think you'd agree, Peter, in terms of what we mean by the future of space being in these companies like yours. Is that know-how of having been there and done that, and made those decisions. But this is not the first success either, right? You know, Photon is now a success. You've also had an amazing success with Electron, the capture by a helicopter, first time attempted in so many years, you know, executed, you know, demonstrated, that, you know, again, paves the way for another discussion about what recovery means and what reusable means, and how that can serve the budding space economy. So, you know, how do you see the use cases and the things people are doing evolving between the two platforms now, that are really, you know, just clearly capable and almost routine at this point, the way your team is making it look these days?
Yeah, I'm glad it looks routine. I can assure you it's anything but, especially going to the moon.
Totally.
But look, they're 2 different kind of product lines in a sense. You've got Electron, which is a very mature product, and, you know, every sort of 30 days there's a vehicle, you know, rolling off the production line, or I think it's every 18 working days. But you know, and it's a very stable and mature product. But we continue to tweak, obviously, reusability. We've you know, iterated on that, you know, quite significantly. And then I think a lot of people know us as the rocket company, because the rocket steals the show, right? And we saw that with the Capstone launch.
Yep.
Yeah, we saw that with the Capstone launch. With, you know, when the Electron put the lunar photon in orbit, I think 90% of the world thought that mission was done. Where the way we looked at it is like 10% of the mission was just putting it in orbit. Like, we've done that plenty of times before. Now the real trickiness was the spacecraft, and you know, our space systems division is actually larger than our launch division at this point. So you know, we've got some exciting missions. We've got, you know, Escapade, which is 2 satellites to orbit Mars, and some you know, LOXSAT, which is a propellant devo in orbit. So some really cool projects coming out of that team.
Amazing. And what's really clear is that it's it's a big statement to say that the space systems and astronautics and that side of the house is now larger than the launch side. That tells everyone, this is operations and manufacturing. It's low risk. But this is where the work and everything's going, is into the space system. So it's a really interesting different type of indicator for the health of all of these applications. But moving forward, your team is driving some amazing space logistics operations. Just a couple days ago, on the 6th of July, there was the announcement of the responsive space program. And that is this is truly now in the US. We've got UPS and FedEx. It's truly the postal service of whatever you want to whatever orbit, cislunar. Can you talk about that and how you see it evolving, and what you think it means for the ecosystem in general?
Yeah, I mean, look, responsive access to space has been talked about for as long as I've been in this industry. And, from the Electron side, we've executed it a number of times in a different formats. At least once a year, we have a customer come to us with their hair on fire, needing to get on orbit super quick. And, all sorts of different applications, some commercial and some more defense related. But it's something that we've done a lot in the past. Program R3D2 from DARPA, it was a responsive launch program. And the way we look at responsive launch is, it's not just about the rocket, it's also about the spacecraft. So having so much under the one roof with respect to being able to build whatever the spacecraft we need to, and then launch it and then operate it, that's actually true responsive access to space. Because if you've got a rocket sitting there 24/7, but there's no satellite to go on it, it's totally useless. So there's many more elements to it. But on the launch side, we designed the vehicle from day one with having a segregated and integrated payload and upper stage stack, where it's completely agnostic to any booster. You can integrate that, put it in the corner, nitrogen purge it, and leave it for as long as you want. And integrate it to a booster at any point in time. So we created all these things. We kind of do them at various levels already in normal business. So we felt it was just about time. Well, how can we provide a solution for customers that they can follow and actually deliver on true responsive access? And the long pole is always licensing. So there's a process. This program is really about laying out the process such that if you needed to launch in a hurry, here's how you do it. And in many respects, we've exercised this a number of times already. So instead of just it's just customers coming to us with their hair on fire. It's like we much prefer to put out a guide about how you do it, and then work with customers to achieve those goals that they ultimately have.
No, that's really amazing. And what's going to be so interesting about that is of course the people who are smaller smaller players perhaps, for whom that's been an issue. They don't know that process. How do we do this? How do we make this happen? And enabling them with this capability will enable their customers, use cases, etc. It's such a fundamental play that I think we take for granted these capabilities in our modern daily lives. One other thing that I think is really exciting that you mentioned was about the radio and deep space comms, and I would just like to kind of insert this question about and ask about your opinion of where space communication needs to go next, and how that might play and interact with your company, of course.
Yeah, I mean, we're super lucky. We have a great relationship with APL, and we license one of their radios and manufacture it in-house, and work with them to create this radio. I mean, it's funny, you look at a deep space spacecraft. Actually, the radio is one of the largest kind of barriers to doing anything. You can have a great propulsion system, but if you can't talk to it, it doesn't matter. And we learned very early on, this was going to be super critical, and having the ability to range and navigate off a radio is really, really important. And, we've learned a tremendous amount, not just through the Capstone mission, but even now, like as a spacecraft is speeding out into our solar system, we're still learning about, how to do deep space comms, and all the kind of idiosyncrasies that go with that. And, we don't have the DSN dishes. So, we've got, relatively small dishes on a commercial basis doing deep space comms. Capstone obviously has, the luxury of the DSN or deep space network, right, great big dishes and all the rest of it. So we're doing all this on commercial dishes, at a commercial level. So we're learning a tremendous amount there about how far can you actually go on a small commercial dish. And like I say, I'm not sure where we're at now, but it has to be 400,000 plus kilometers. Wow. And we're still communicating and uploading commands and doing what we need to do. So we're learning a lot for sure. And I think deep space comms is going to be really, really critical for obviously returning men and women to the moon, but also further steps.
Right, going beyond.
It's just going to be absolutely critical.
Yeah. So I mean, that fundamental enabler of continued economy, but and this is something moving into something a little more about you perhaps. It sounds like you also have a passion for radios. So rockets, radios. These are really exciting times for the space economy, and we're going to the stars on the back of commercial pioneers like yourself. But one thing, and you don't talk about yourself much, but one thing I wanted to ask you about was, and anything that in particular that you think is so super relevant about your journey, coming from working in a tool and die shop as a rocket enthusiast, a radio enthusiast, all the way to to who you are now. I know for the rocket, the rocket geek community, right? You're kind of one of us who made it, not a billionaire coming in. So I think the community really, really appreciates your journey in that. And I just wanted to invite you to maybe share something that you felt you've particularly learned or want to give to the people out there now trying to get into the industry from that journey.
Yeah, well, I would say that I'm still very much learning a lot about myself and a lot about everything, really. I started in a small town at the bottom of New Zealand in a country with no space industry, and I guess I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and to me it was just non-optional that this is an area that I wanted to pursue as a career and a passion. I was lucky to have parents that really put no boundaries on what I could achieve. It could a lot of parents, it's very easy for them to say, oh, just focus on your grades and do this. I was lucky to grow up in a household where if I had a passion with something, then that passion would be fueled, and there would be never any talk about what's possible and what's not possible. So I think that's important. But I guess if you really want to go after something, then everybody has the ability within inside them to make it happen. It can be super painful, and you have to sacrifice a lot. But if you really, really believe in something you want to do, then you just got to go and make it happen. And if you look at Rocket Lab, we were a very, very small company for a number of years, just struggling away there. But it came to a point where we could actually had enough credibility to raise capital and do all those things and go well outside the things that you're comfortable with. It's kind of a juxtaposition, because as an engineer, I'm a very conservative engineer. So I like margins and I like to understand everything, and fairly conservative guy. But when it comes to creating a rocket company, man, you got to take some risk, because there's if you're conservative too much, then you'll never advance. And Capstone is a great example of that. We'd never even really put a satellite in orbit, before we'd won the Capstone mission. So we had a lot to learn in a very short time frame. But like I say, if you want it badly enough, then absolutely, anything is possible.
Oh, that's spectacular. Thank you. One of the things that also is happening now, and we alluded to it earlier, in terms of from the entrepreneurs, but also the general workforce of the future. I myself am professor of space business, space business leadership and policy. In a master's program we created at Thunderbird around space, and you see a lot of different types of education and discussion about how do we think about that workforce of the future. What do they need? You've built this from literally the first nut and bolt all the way to now the moon and beyond. What that workforce was needed. What do you see? What recommendations might you give to academics or government people about, hey, this is what we need in this industry. It's happening. It's the future. You got to get your citizens, upskilled to be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing, and let's be clear here, like Rocket Lab success is a giant team. It's not like I'm the built it all. It's an amazing team here that do these things. And I would just say that for what we look in people are people with just passion. Obviously, you need to be super sharp, but also super passionate. And we would hire a master's student who is super passionate over some expert PhD that was kind of boring and not really interested in the field any day of the week. And as people kind of start to prepare themselves for a career, I mean, we always like to see people who just go out and do stuff. Like show us you have the ability to just go out and do the things that you're passionate about. And it doesn't need to be in space. If we're looking at hiring a technician to work on a spacecraft, if they have a great passion in automotive or in aviation or whatever, we look to see what do they do in their spare time, and what are the key elements that make this person really good at what they do. And it doesn't have to be you don't have to be in the space industry to work in the space industry. But I think that's the most important thing is providing that catalyst for passion and doing cool stuff so people get excited about it. I think that's really important to continue to inspire the next generation is really do cool stuff.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for taking your time. I know we want to be very sensitive to your schedule as well, sir. So thank you for your remarks. Again, just congratulations to you and the entire team on just some spectacular successes. And again, Capstone, as we've talked about today, demonstrates not just a launch and place capability. It demonstrates so much of the infrastructure being available now in commercial offering. Fundamental change from when you and I were kids, and to think that we've helped change it is super gratifying, I'm sure. And thank you again to everyone in our audience and our sponsors, Millennium Space Systems and Viasat. Thank you, Peter, and your entire team, for your remarks today. Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much. Cheers. Thanks.
Thank you both very much. Peter, that is incredible, some of the information you shared with us. And Z, the trifecta, 3 in a row. That was outstanding. We can't thank you enough. You did a great job. So on behalf of all the Space Talks with Z, you get a 100%.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. And congrats to you both on just a spectacular event today, and to our hosts, the generals, etc. It's been a real pleasure and honor to be part of such a team.
Well, you were just outstanding, so thank you again. So we hope to see you again.